Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. We got a packed show for you today. That's right. First of all, let me tell you, this is not legal or professional advice of any kind, not business advice. This is just for you to have a great time. Absolutely. I hope you're doing well out there, having a productive day like I am. And what is the topics today? What do we have today? We have two things we're going to touch upon. One of them, Karl Jobst on welfare. So says one Billy Mitchell. And number two is that Luss is going to stop making videos about this whole situation, specifically Karl Jobst, because he is being threatened. And we'll go both those two situations, right? First, let's look at what King Billy says here. Karl Jobst is now on welfare. I'm going to the Centerlink office on Monday. Real talk. Wow. What is Centerlink? What is Centerlink? From what I gather, it's a combination of unemployment and Social Security. I don't know. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to the homepage. Let's see what it says. Let's see here.
Income and assets tests. You must meet the income and assets tests to get job seeker payment.
Ooh, job seeker payment. Okay, so it's sort of like unemployment, welfare, whatever it's called over there. Over here in the U.S., we call it welfare. That's probably why he's referring to it like that. That's a pretty sad state of affairs, man. But let me tell you, don't make any inferences on that. That doesn't mean that Karl Jobst isn't making any money, right? It could be just a strategy of what his lawyers are advising him to do, right? Because, obviously, when you put that out there, the implication is that you're in financial ruin and insolvency, right? But it could be, right, again, not legal advice, just what people do here in the U.S., which is typical, right? It could be a possible bankruptcy strategy, right? When you want to discharge as much as possible from a bankruptcy, usually, and you can't, squeeze water out of a rock, right? In this case, if what he stated is true, right, that he is now just an employee of the company, that means that, salary-wise, he doesn't make much. He would qualify for whatever unemployment or welfare is out there, and that's what he would be showing to the court. Right? That doesn't mean he doesn't have any assets to sell to pay creditors. But, like if you were in a payment plan or something like that, right, the payment would be a lot lower. You're just trying to lower your liability at all costs. That's what I would imagine anybody would do, right? But it just depends that certain debts, right, arising from fraud or penalties or court fines may not be fully discharged. So we don't know, right? I don't know what the laws out there in Australia are, right? But it's within the law, right? In any state here in California, for example, and that's the only thing I can talk about. The things that I've seen in business, it's within the law to use, avoidance or evasion tactics, right? As part of your defense, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of garnishment order. There's going to be some seizure of sale and property, right? And there's going to be an examination of some type. Here in the U.S., they do like a summons or something like that, like DSP had, remember? You had to have that phone call. And all the creditors called in. That's crazy. I don't know if they have something like that in Australia, because I don't know if you remember when DSP did his his bankruptcy, and they had the phone call section for all the creditors to show up. All the trolls show up and started asking about WWE champions or something like that. So. What this is implying is financial collapse, right? And it's not a good look, right? It's not a good look. And let me tell you, Karl, if he wants to continue giving advice like he is on his channel, part of the reason it's destroying it, the viewership, is because you can't take advice from a guy who's in this situation, right? The guy just cheated, some guy just cheated on a video game. Okay, fine. But you have to go to the welfare office. who are you to tell anybody anything? Jeez. Cheating on a video game is the last of your problems, if this is true. All right, and it's just nuts that it came to this, from all the bravado, from everything else. Now, one thing that he states here, if you look at this post from Billy Mitchell, is that it is illegal or against the law for creditors or debt collectors to harass or intimidate debtors, including platforms like Twitter. So, yeah, there might be some responsibility there. I mean, he's taking a warning shot at Billy. Now Billy becomes a creditor. Now, Billy says that, he's going to make a statement. Yeah, a statement from Billy Mitchell to Karl Jobst coming soon. Now, guys, don't forget, our unofficial sponsor, Ricky Sauce, is offering 10% off with Brokey or Bankrupt. He says he's going to make a statement from Billy Mitchell, Karl Jobst coming soon. What could that mean? Well, it could mean that once they enter in this bankruptcy court hearing, he will become a creditor, right? Like officially, and then based on that, maybe he can't do, so many posts about Karl Jobst. Maybe maybe somebody else will take over in his family for making the post, right? I don't know. I don't know what the laws are. Who knows what's going to happen with this? But one thing that has happened, guys, is that according to Luss, right? According to Luss, he's been getting threats from Karl Jobst fans. Now, Luss seems like just a calm kind of guy. He doesn't seem from the streets. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody comes from different places, but he's in Texas, I believe. I mean, that's a carry state. I can't get too deep into it, but for those of us who love the Second Amendment, I mean, so let me read his statement here. Karl Jobst fans continued harassment of me. Karl Jobst fans continue harassment of me is illegal, and I'm looking for legal options against his most abusive supporter. So there's more than one. Oh man, that's pretty messed up. I have his full name and confirmed image of him, as well as the evidence he has sent 4 disgusting emails and text messages. Yeah, guys, there's trolls, in this whole thing. And on both sides, right? On both sides. So at least he's identified which side is in. You have all kinds of weirdos out here. I have an app that reveals the real phone number, even if you attempt to mask it. You didn't know I had this app. I downloaded it from the Anthony Ferrera livestream situation. This individual has repeatedly come after my family in the last 24 hours. I've decided not to make any further videos about Karl Jobst after receiving graphic death threats to my 9-month-old daughter. Tomorrow, I'm talking to a friend who is a lawyer in the state of the offender is located about pressing criminal charges against this individual. I hope you can understand my caution. And we do. We do. I mean, it's just, he's a lawyer. He knows how to handle things legally, right? He knows what he's doing. I mean, when you're on the internet and you make this, when you make everything public like he has, because he's a lawyer, I guess, I don't know, at one point he was trying to maybe advertise his services. That's why he put himself out there. I don't know. It depends on your experience, guys. I mean, threats always happen. It depends what kind of life you had, really. I mean, I can tell you my experience. The first time I got a gun pulled on me, I think I was like 7. We got robbed. That's the kind of neighborhood I grew up in. My mom to this day, bless her soul, she's 80 years old, and my mom is still packing. She has a little business she keeps us busy with, and my mom still got the strap, and that's how we grew up. In the neighborhoods we grew up, there was 2 kind of people, right? There was victims and gun owners, right? If you weren't strapped, man, that was on you, right? And it's never been any different. I grew up in the era, and I guess a lot of it has to do with the era, guys. If you look at a lot of people that pack, I grew up in the 80s where it was going to be, we're looking for the year 2000. It was going to be the end of the world and what have you. So I grew up in an environment where we were stacked up for 90 days worth of food to this day, right? In my house, I have 90 days worth of food and water in an arsenal for just such an occasion. I can tell you, my cousins and me would, we wouldn't be sad if somebody invaded. Let me just put it that way. We're not waiting for the army to get here. Nope. For me, it depends, right? It depends. Everybody has their own favorite strap. For me, it's always been the sawed off, man. There's nothing more satisfying than blasted. But, apparently this gentleman feels intimidated, and it just, you have to protect yourself. I understand him. I have a baby too. And it just depends, what kind of environment, it's not the same, right? If somebody lives in an apartment complex or a duplex or something like that, and especially in open areas, not everybody gets to have the room that we have here in California, for example. I can see who's coming to my house 50 yards away. If the pit bull doesn't get them, by the time they get here, we're going to be talking to Jesus. But, you have to make light of the situation because it's just crazy. I mean, I hope for the best for him. I hope he's able to protect his family, right? And it's quite a different situation, right? When you are a lawyer making legal opinions, they just carry more weight. It tends to piss people off, right? When I say something, people know they don't know what I'm talking about. Usually, unless it's business related, right? Unless you have a problem with organizing your company, what I say is comedy, right? But he's in quite a different situation, and I hope, for him that he's able to resolve it, that, whoever's doing this stops, right? Because it's always a dangerous thing. But, most of the time these things aren't, they're not real, and they're just trying to intimidate people, and most people just run away. They're not like, like in my neighborhood where you're wishing. I wish a motherfucker would. I remember back in the 80s where we lived in East Los Angeles, there was a Night Stalker, right? And just to give you an example, right? My uncles were leaving the windows open in hope that he would show up because they wanted the reward money. Oh, man. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. It's just different, man. People grow up in different places. The U.S. is such a big country that people feel differently about things. Some people will never touch a strap, and some of us always have it on us. It's just depends the environment you grow up in. But he's got to do the best for his family, and hopefully these people stop, right? And again, it depends the interactions you have with people. Like I've said before, anytime I make, if I get Karl Jobst sad to the point where he's just like, feelings, nothing more than feelings, and he tells me, hey, you know what, Gen X, this video about the welfare really, really hurt my soul, man. Can you take that one down? No problem, brother. Just send me a note. It's gone. I'll publish the note and everybody will know why I took it down, right? It's not that deep. It's Donkey Kong, guys. Why are you guys threatening people over a video game? It's insane. It really is insane. But remember, here in the U.S., you always got to be prepared. Get you a pity and get you a strap. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.